Hello, and welcome to today's web seminar, Testing Coverage Optimization, where environment variation is often unlimited, sponsored by Techexcel, and featuring Dr. Tiran Zhao, Prince Wong, and Lucas Graff. I'm Rochelle Sawal, and I'll be supporting today's webinar. Before the presentation begins, let me explain the console. The panel on the right has a feature to chat or ask questions. If you minimize this panel, just click on the chat button to reopen it. If you experience any technical issues, please send me, Rochelle Sawal, a private chat, and I'll be happy to help you. Finally, to optimize your bandwidth for the best viewing experience, please close out any other applications you have running in the background. This event is being recorded and will be made available on demand. Once the recording is ready, you'll get an email with instructions about how to access the presentation. And with that, I'd like to welcome and introduce Dr. Zhao and Lucas.
Hi, everybody. This is Tiran Zhao. Thank you, Rachel. And today's topic, we'll be talking about how can you optimize the test coverage. So when you do testings, a application lifecycle management or agile development or project management for product research and technology. And so often quality is important. When you view a development process from the quality viewpoint, perhaps quality is most important. Taking the quality centric approach will lead you to think very important two aspects of quality issues. Number one, how can you cover all the functional area of your product or of your project? Number two, what if your product need to be running in the production environment where variations of the production environment variables need to be quantified? So let's talk about agile development versus quality assurance. So we would like to take a poll asking our audience to help. What is your understanding of stream model test grid? Uh, if you can answer that questions, and then later we can probably, this question should be easier, which is the first question: what method does your development team use? So if you can submit, then your answers later we can share the percentage of people using Teams in today's attendance. We are using Agile or a different method. Okay, so Agile development. From Agile developers' viewpoint, obviously it's about we would like to view Agile team. The primary goal is about to gaining the productivity, and the developing is often done within 1 or 2 weeks of sprints, where at the end of each sprint, we would like to see our working software can go production, can be used by our customers. So from this point of view, often modern development, because agile is becoming so popular these days, uh, it's more important to view agile need to be balanced by integrating with requirement management and quality management. So often QA testing is is implemented in addition to the agile process. We would like to enable QA team members joining a development agile teams, and often a QA floaters plays a role of working with the agile team. What if we want to take a different approach, of viewing the same development process, but more from the eyes of the QA people? Then total quality assurance is to ensure every product feature is tested, we would like to have test cases to be part of a requirement, and would like to test the runtime variations. And the runtime variations primarily takes the environmental variation can be thousands to millions of or even unlimited variations. So agile testing challenge becomes how can you enable the test cases to be indeed well defined? When do you define the test cases? Is it during the requirement finalizations, or during or after or before your development test gets done? In other in other words, how do you do agile testing within the sprints? Then how do you do the regression testings? Uh, so this one perhaps is a methodology pictures. It's a method. It's a development methodology. I founded. I created called SpecDD. I believe modern agile method it's because it's becoming so popular. Pretty much over 90% of the development teams are using agile. So it's important to enable agile to be integrated with requirement and with test uh, practice as a part of a methodology framework. So with that views, we would like to uh, think about while development in agile methodologies is about development iterations by iterations, which in a Scrum uh, term a sprint. But how about how do we organize the agile testings? You can think about agile testing consists of a set of continuous iterations of testings. So so at at the starting of your project, you start to plan your QA testing uh, plan, the release standard. Then during the construction phase of your project, you start to build and test your test case libraries. And then during when your project reach the release phase, your testing, you need to deploy the release and publish the working software. And then your product will become a production system. So where testing, we will continue to do regression testings and as well as to do testing along with your development sprint, and your customers start to use your product, and they will be submitting defect to you as well. So from uh, how do you cover the total traceability of your product? So so if we think about total traceability is about to make sure you can test the entire product for all of its functions. Then total traceability is about linking all the requirement with not only the development tasks, but as well as test cases. You want to create test case for each requirement. You want the development task while the development tasks are being implemented. You want the test cases to be accessible so that your development team can test the test case because they are linked with the requirement. So therefore, the tests, the requirements are driving the creation of development tasks. However, the tasks are always associated with the parent requirement. Therefore, they are related with the test cases as well. So therefore, to achieve total testing quality coverage is about measure the performance of your development teams, hopefully in an automatic way for their productivity as well as quality. In other words, can you quantify each of your developer for their productivity as well as quality? So we propose a method where a requirement can be quantified with the requirement points as well as the quality points. So therefore, you can auto calculate developers' productivity as well as quality. So, so in other words, the the quality is about enable your QA team members or a QA floaters working with your agile team to perform testing so that number of failure of a development task can be auto uh, can be used to auto calculate the quality level of their work. So from this kind of a quality point of view of your development work, then we can say total quality coverage is about to enable each test cases to be able to test all the functional areas, functional aspect of your working software, whether it's product features, user interface, performance, security, or functions. Then, then you plan your test by creating a release plan, and then you run the test by run the testing cycles by cycles to accomplish the functional coverage to be full. So with that, uh, you want to cover your testing based on all the requirements are tested. In other words, by specifying certain set of requirements, since the requirements are connected with your test cases, you can derive what tests you need to test. So the second method is of deciding is to decide a set of test cases that you need to test simply by looking at your test case libraries. By selecting which test case is the area you want to test, you are basically deciding what set of test cases to be added in additional to add coverage for the functional coverage. Then often you want to decide what set of test cases are the most important tests you need to cover in the next testing cycle by simply analyzing your current development activities. Since your development activity for this spring or this month covers this set of tasks, which are really connected with a set of requirements, therefore you can derive what's the test cases you need to test them. And then the fourth method of covering better test cases to be selected will be analyzing for the for the for the current or for the previous a few testing cycles, which covers the activity, your testing team's activity for this month or for this week or for the previous week. What are the tests were finished? And out of the testing tasks finished, what are the set of test cases that uh, ended up with failed testing tasks? Therefore, it will help you to decide which set of test cases were failed, but with development activities that were performed to have such failed tests to be ready to be tested again. So this much we have been covering about the functional coverage of your total testing coverage. However, testing coverage is far more complicated than just covering all the functional area by selecting the test case library to decide which set of test cases you want to test. So in this pictures, we want to introduce the concept of runtime variation of your product or of your project can be quantified by using a model. So first of all, you want to quantify the runtime variation by selecting a set of test uh, environment variables for your production behavior of your product. Then for each variable, you decide the choices. In this picture, on the left side, you see a variable one and then variable two. The variable one is server systems, whether it's a Windows server or Linux server. And then the variable two is database, whether it's Oracle or Microsoft SQL. Then you select what are these variable you want be using them to cover your runtime testing. So pretty much the the popular method as of today is a statistical model, where I call it permutation model test grid. So where you select the Windows servers or the Linux servers, permutate with the database to be Oracle or Microsoft SQL, further permutate the devices your application will be running, whether it will be on the iPhone, Android, or web. So the second model is today's main topic we want to talk about, which is called stream model. So what is a stream model? Stream model give you a more flexible way of deciding what set of variable you want to permutate, but done in a more like Excel format. You choose server system, followed by choose database, followed by choosing browser. Then you can further choose more variables. So it's more like building an Excel document, but more in with a disciplined method. So let's talk about how do you do a environment variable to come up with your permutations. That's relatively easy because it's a statistic model. You define what is your server system, how your database should be represented, how your devices will be represented. Then you take all the permutations. Once you decide which permutation you want to be testing, a uh, a permutation test grid will be looking like pretty much like this one, where you have server, database, devices, then you permutate them. You decide what the runtime environment environmental variables you want to select them to be testing. Then for each EV variable, you select what are the choices you want to test them. Then the permutation become always in a pretty much of in a very normalized way, meaning every permutation is about variable one, variable two, variable three, in case you selected three variables. So as a result, you will come up with this runtime variations. For the test cases on the left side, you test them not only against the testing procedures, but you set up your testing production system environmental variations by having the values of your EV variable 1, EV variable 2 database, and EV variable 3 devices. Then you further decide what are the testing tasks should be created, what will be not applicable. So as a result, you at the runtime behavior will be like this, where you start to test whether it's auto testings or you do manual testings, then you derive what's the percentage of failure versus successful. However, while permutation model is easier to understand because it's really it's a math problem. It's a it's a statistics uh, model. However, real world testing is more like what you see here. This is one of our customers, which is a gaming company. When they need to test gaming, as you can see, the variations for the naming for the game could be the color, could be the character shadows, could be the background music, could be the the beautiful graphic, the animations, and could be in this case the gaming functional roles, the enemy, the key ability. When you have a testing grid like this, you probably start to wonder how can we using computer software to model this Excel document. This one actually is Excel document. It's not a it doesn't give you the total traceability. So we here propose a method. We propose a method called it's a retail street model. It's a conceptual model where we want to be able to form any testing grid like this Excel document, but do it with the total traceability, auto reporting, and with the ability to create test release plan and test cycles in a more robust way. So here is the trick. You view any testing grid or any Excel like testing environment environmental variations to be like a street of retail store where each retail store building is actually built from top down. In other words, imagine you have the unlimited power to build a retail building. Instead of you build a building bottom up, you build a building top down. You build the top building in this case by selecting a variable and then select a choice or select one choice or two choice. So the building top building is a server system building, which is the EV variable is server system. Then you build two stores, two units of stores. Then for each store, you build the lower building by selecting a different variable database, and then you decide how many units of stores you want to build. Then for Oracle, you further build down by selecting browser, by selecting any choices you like. So as a result, as you can see, this building, this retail street consists of building one, then building two, building three, building four, no, building three. So one building is three store. So hopefully by taking this kind of practice, you can build your Excel as flexible as you want, but everything is quantified. What does that mean? That means, once you have the building, you can create all the tasks needed to test your test cases on the left side. And then the test cases, as you test them, you get the statistics of number of tests number of successful, number of failure, number of defect you submitted. And then such test cases you can make some test cases to be not applicable for certain permutations. In other words, the more you testing, the more accurate your test case library will become. So in this case, we are we're showing you how can you add your EV variable of your stream model, the horizontal testing grid with vertical grid. Remember the Excel document I showed you? By adding a vertical variation of your EV, now you have a street model testing grid that can cover any possible variation you can imagine. So this webinar is about showing you uh, how can you define a flexible uh, retail street model testing grid where the runtime variation of unlimited variations can be quantified with a method so that you have the confidence. As long as you can draw an Excel document, then you can automate your testing practice to cover your testing quality so that you can claim that since we can quantify our quality standard, therefore we can use auto testing and we can use our manual testing by our QA teams. And then we plan the coverage, we execute our testing so we can achieve total quality in terms of the quantified model. You can predict, and you can also execute your testing to achieve the assurance of what's the level you can accomplish by deploying your human testing effort plus your auto testing, bot based testing. So this one is a street model of a runtime behavior. So where you can see, uh, you on the left side, it's showing you the test release plan, and it's showing you the multiple testing cycle. And for one of the testing cycle, you are testing not only the the permutation, the street model testing grid, the horizontal testing grid. You are also adding vertical testing grid. And then for each test cases, not only you are testing the functional aspect of the procedures and checking the result, you are applying the permutation to generate this many tasks. And so obviously, what's the benefit of stream model? Number one, obviously it can pretty much do everything of the permutation model. And you can define as many variables as you need, and permutation become easy because you get what you draw, like Excel document is what you're going to be getting for your testing grid to be like. For each testing cycle, you can test one grid or multiple grids, and then you can obviously automate the the reporting. And most importantly, you start to build your test library to be so accurate because not only you can define the runtime variables, the environmental variables, but you can also do the variations of so flexible way. And for certain permutations, you can easily decide as you start to test it, you can easily decide whether such test is applicable or not applicable. So I'm hoping we can do the remaining two questions. Uh, so one of the question is, does your company practice runtime variations coverage? Would like to know uh, currently you're already using covering the runtime variation or not. So I'm submitting the answer myself too. And then we have another question, I believe. The The third question is, what do you think about the permutations? Uh, so I will move on to the next slide. So yeah, okay, great. So what is your understanding of street model test grid? I hope this topic sounds interesting to you guys. Uh, you think it's just another method of the permutation test grid, or the answer is the B? Just want to know the answer. So now I want to invite you guys to visit a website called testgrid.cloudp1.com. I'm sorry, the site, the URL is at the very top. I hope somebody can help me to put this URL in the chat area, so you just click on that. I would like you to try to build it, to build your testing grid. I would like you to feel, since you are building your testing grid, like in the eyes of you are building a retail building street. I hope you conclude yourself that you can build it as if you are creating an Excel document for your testing purpose. And ideally, I like the audience to build your test grid and then take a screenshot of your picture and share in the chat areas with us. Hopefully, you're convinced. As long as you can draw an Excel sheet, then you can automate your quality standard. And when you can define your quality standard in such a flexible Excel draw, like creating an Excel document, and yet with the confidence you are doing you're doing testings, and you can accomplish total traceability. You can build your quality standard. You can plan your quality release standard. In other words, in the next 3 months, we want to achieve the quality to this level. And then you can drive your test cycle creation and testing it, execute your testing standard via auto testings or via human being testings. So I guess we're going to give you guys about 3 minutes of time to try it. Uh, to help you guys, I probably let me see. I probably can share my screen uh, to show you you can do it. Here's a I'm starting a screen sharing. So here's my screen share. So I believe this is the test grid. So what you do, you click on start testings. Click to register is not working. So if you are interested, please contact us to have a fully functional product called Project One P1 to test our software. So if you start testing here, if you notice, you can build your retail street by selecting a variable, by selecting choices. This will be the top floor of your building. Then you select another variables with choices. So you're adding more retail stores. And then for this unit, you want to build down, and by selecting whatever the variables and whatever the choices, then you say okay. Then you do more variables language. Uh, then you select, build this one here, the client, to one choice. and then I'm going to build this testings by testing document server, Amazon. Then by this one, I'm going to do a variables, only one. Then you say I'm done. As you notice, it's give you a nice street model as if you have a shop on your ground floor. When you enter, you looking upward. That's your permutation. So if you say I'm going to be testing, then this is the way you will be testing your variation of your runtime variables for your for your software, for your hardware, for your project, anything you can think of that will cover all the possible variations. And the variation can be, just like you're drawing an Excel document, as you can see now, you can perform testings, pass, this one pass. However, this one failed. So I hope you guys like this practice, and I think we're going to move on to the next presenter. Let me see. Stop sharing. Okay. Next, we have Lucas from NVIDIA, one of our customers, to present how they use our product and use the concept like what I just presented for their testing purpose. Thank you, Lucas.
All right, thanks, Taryn. Yeah, so I've been at NVIDIA for 23 years, and one of the biggest issues we've had over those years is, the permutations of cards, OSs, and now displays and things like that. Back 23 years ago, we only had two cards, there were two OSs, and so one test had a max of four combinations, so it was pretty easy back then. But obviously, over the years, we've grown. So has the number of OSs, and obviously, our GPUs have grown. Product line has grown quite exponentially. So our main three, I have to be kind of careful what I show, but I've kind of sanitized it here. So our four environment variable options are GPU, platform, OS, and display. GPUs are exactly what we think GPUs. Platforms are, we use this as basically like, it's considered like a notebook or some server or something like that's a platform. Then OS is obviously OS.
Lucas, I'm sorry,
Oh, I'm not
Lucas.
sharing. I forgot to share.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, please, yeah.
Screen. All right. Boom. Okay. There we go.
Perfect.
Yeah, so over here, I kind of had to move this off to sanitize a bit. But anyway, these are the four environment variables we're using inside DevTest. We have the GPU, platform, OS, and display. And like I was saying, these have grown exponentially over the years. So right now we have 1,200 possible GPU environment variables, 300 platforms, 300 OSs, and then 100 display EVs. These are monitors. OS is OS. Platforms, like I was saying, are notebooks, servers, etc. And then GPUs are GPUs. And there's also can be competitor GPUs. Basically any GPU is in here. So to manage these, obviously gets tricky. Like I was saying, 23 years ago when we had two OSs and two cards, it was four permutations. It was pretty easy to figure out. But these days, we have a bunch of tests. Also, our test library has increased over the years too. Back then we didn't have the test. Most of our test plans years ago were brought to us by Dell, Gateway, HP, computer companies. Said, "Here, test this, and then we'll buy your products." Well, now that's changed, and we have to do our own tests. So I kind of, I cut out. This is a very old product, so it doesn't matter if I show it. But so this product here, with all the test cases and permutations, we had 994,257 permutations of tasks we had to test. And you can see here, here's how those EVs come out in one big string. So this was on this GF100 specific SKU on a generic platform on Windows 10, Redstone 3, x64, and then on a generic display. So this permutation can apply, to probably hundreds of different templates and then into these tasks here. Now, managing this is obviously tricky because there can be a bunch of problems. You don't know if the users have actually tagged the test cases correctly with these EVs. and then B, how do we test all these permutations? So there's a lot of planning we do. We can't obviously test whatever this multiplies out to, like 10 billion combinations for every new driver we put out. Some of this stuff's legacy, so it doesn't really matter. But there is a subset of these we have to test, every driver release. And even if we do a point release, mid release, we have to retest some of those things, etc. So how I did this is, using some of Techexcel's APIs and then to database queries and things like that, we had to make this. I made this third-party tool here, and again, I've kind of sanitized it, but this is going to have. So here's all the EVs, platform EVs, OS EV, display EV, and then here's all the test plans. And you can see that this goes on and on and on for quite a long time. So this is how we kind of manage it. These gray ones means that this EV has not been tagged against a specific test plan, so there's not going to be any tasks created. This is kind of a red flag to say, hey, users, you have this in your plan here, but there's nothing tagged. Go out and check and make sure it's tagged. So then they have to go into dev test and go find this template and then make sure it's tagged. But so I've made this though. So what you do is there's a thing called validate here that I already did while the meeting was going. And it's going to tell you how many tasks. So this is going to make 13 total tasks just from this one test plan against this EV combination right here. So you can go through here and you can see how if you add up all of these numbers here, it's going to be quite a large number of tasks that get created. And this is just for one. This could be just for one specific phase of our testing. And so to Terrence's point, this gets cumbersome to manage. The users will come in here and they export this out and they have a meeting and then they decide, okay, do we have to test this release? If not, they'll delete that row and they come back and redo this. There's a thing in here where it'll show you the time, like how long it's going to take. Yeah, this ETA. So it'll sum up and tell you how long it's going to take. And if they need to trim that down, they can come in, remove EVs, add EVs, etc. And we can click this template utilization. This is a button that I made that will pop up and it'll show you all the templates against all the EVs and say, how much of this are we using in this specific release? So there's a lot of metrics that go into this, these EVs. And again, like I say, this is 10 billion combinations. We can't test it all. We do a lot of automation. Our goals, they keep saying the goal is 100% automation. But so in here, you can see here that this top one, they're all manual tasks. They're not automated yet. This next one, there's going to be 2 automated tasks and then 2 manual tasks for 4 total. Yeah, so to Terrence's point that he was showing, this permutation stuff, we need it. This is how our testing and Techexcel, when we were looking for third-party tools, the only one that kind of supported how NVIDIA tests, because we don't really test our stuff the way I guess everyone else tested. And they were the only ones at the time that would support this kind of funky stuff with the EV. So yeah, we've been using it for 16 years. This is how we kind of manage it. As you can tell, it'd be cumbersome. It's a lot of work on the program managers to have to come, review all this stuff, but it's just a necessary evil of what we have to do. So if anybody has any questions, or Terren or James, or anybody has any questions, just let me know if you want to expand on anything.
Yeah, Lucas, this is a very, very good stuff you shared. One of my question would be, when you have the EV, so many EV and the choices, and like you said, 10 billions of choices.
Yeah.
Then how do you select which one to test? And then how do you once you decide which combination you want to test, then how do you plan your auto testing so the auto testing can take whatever the permutation and set the production environmental variables to be properly set up? And then also, how do you appreciate such testing result and generating the reports? And when you do the reports, how can you design the report so that human being can identify such variation out of 10 billions of possibilities
Right.
there?
Yeah. So luckily, a long time ago, when we started using EVs, many product cycles ago, we kind of started with a base template. And so they have these various phases. They have phases called V1, V2, V3, V4. And they know in V1's like, okay, new driver. And here's our most important test cases we need to test. So they have a template out there already that we started a long time ago that says, okay, these are our V1 tests. It looks a lot like this, and they'll just have the test plans here. It'd be all the, so you can see here, there's V1, V1, V1. So they have a whole list of these V1 templates that are folders in Techexcel or in DevTest. So they started many years ago with this. If they were to come in right now cold, I don't know how they would do it. But basically, they started years ago and just kept adding or removing that as we've gone along over the years. So they have a good grasp from the beginning. And then the automation part, we basically do that just via fields. We have this whole automated way of doing it. We have a separate work project that stores all of our automated tests. And once they become fully automated, the user goes in and clicks, okay, this test is automated and ready. Then that triggers some stuff and it updates our templates to say it's automated. And then when they come in here to manage it, this fully automated thing just auto updates. So it'll know that test is now automated and ready to go. But still, you can see a lot of our stuff is still manual. And then how do they know what they need to test? Like I said, that's that. And then how they plan it, they just do it in a meeting. They come in here, there's an export button here. And before each release, they just go, what of this is relevant right now? Yeah, it's a big overtaking to do all the planning and stuff. We have a ton of QA team now. I mean, when I started, I was the third QA person on the whole team. So now there's like 1,000 or something. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a big undertaking. It's not easy.
Yeah, for sure. And that I probably want to ask one more question. Hopefully, uh, from our audience, we will have some people to ask questions. So my next question will be more like a comment. How important is EV variation coverage? And my comment will be, you cannot give up, because if you give up this flexibility or the complexity of your runtime
Right.
variation, you give up your product quality. You run big
Correct.
risk. And I'm pretty sure there will be government regulatory uh, uh, compliance regulations there as well. So
Yeah.
to a company, they will be facing whether you need to cover the runtime variations based on your experience. What your recommendation, and what's your comment there?
I'll tell you where it's very important is, our GPUs, this is just how they have to test, but where it's very important is with our automotive products. Automotive products, you have that ISO safety 6262, whatever it is. And we have to provide each automaker an audit every quarter that shows exactly what hardware we tested on with what devices down to the BIOS version and everything. And we have a tool that I made that does all that, grabs all those details and exports it in a PDF. So they can go down line by line and see 100% exactly what was tested on that product that's going in that car. There cannot be one deviation from what we tell them and we tested with versus what that product is actually going out to that manufacturer with. It has to be exact for regulatory safety reasons. And your other question about reporting is, yeah, we've made a ton of reports that shows trend lines that'll show, if you're based on the current progress, if you're going to hit these covering of all these permutations or not, and you can click down and go specifically and see what permutations are not covered yet and what tasks have not been covered yet. So we have a lot of stuff that makes it easy on the user, just go in and click around. But our company specifically, we could not do testing without these environment variables and permutations. That was one of our main requirements years ago because I made the first test case management tool we had here, and the very first requirement was we have to have these way of telling us what OS, what cards, etc. were tested per task. So we have no way around this. We have to do it here. So we're in this far, and we've made it work. Like I said, we started years ago. If you were to come in now with all of our permutations cold, good luck. But I would say you got to start. If you're going to do it, start sooner rather than later, because you can't. It's very hard to come way down the road and come back into it if you need this type of stuff.
Yeah, Lucas, well points there. And I just want to kind of add a comment. Uh, the primary purpose of designing this retail stream model is to make the test grid to be more human being friendly. The primary goal, I'm the inventor of this model, is to enable people, the newcomer of your of your testing total quality team
Right.
to have the visual way of identify certain variation permutations can be can be standing out. You have to accomplish the goal. And I know you guys have done so much a permutation based testing grid or testing practice. Uh, I hope the a kind of a flexible way of Excel like grid
Yeah.
will be helpful for team to decide where to pick up the pinpoints and why testing are showing certain areas of variations are having big problems. Hopefully the Excel document can be helpful,
Yeah, it looked good.
the model. So I don't know if we have other people have question and answers questions.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. We did have a number of questions come in from the audience. Again, feel free to post your questions in the Q&A panel, and we'll get to as many as we can in the time permitting. We did have a question from Angelo. How was the street model invented, and why do you claim it as an Excel but with total traceability?
Yeah, that this question will be for me. Yeah, I I was hoping to provide a way that is a graphical enough to for you to pinpoint the areas of potential variation of runtime variables that are the vital for for you to claim you can release the product. So I think the only answer is give me the Excel like document grid so that I can do the grid very graphical because human being can do the judgment unlike a bot. They can only do mathematical ways. So human being have the ability of making the judgment of the gut feeling based. Yeah, that's I think that's the intelligence of human being that bot cannot possess. So the other driving power of creating a stream model is you have to accomplish that you can do automated testing and you can do reporting automatically as well. So while Excel give you a nice looking graphic, but it doesn't give you the total traceability, it doesn't give you the auto reporting, it does give you the power of driving the auto testing machine, the bot to do the testing. So that's why we invented the retail stream model. And so the second part of the question will be, now you have a stream model. Question is, can you power your developers to make your model like the Excel document to be a software which is robust enough so that not only human being can rely on it to do testing, but as well as the bot, the auto testing. So that's why we want to use an analogy that you can compare the automated testing domain knowledge with a kind of a gut feeling of how do you design this stream model. So that's why we got this model.
Very good. We have one from Maria. When you need to do multiple test grids, are the test cases per grid or shared by all grids?
Yeah, that question is for me too. So when you do need to do testings, imagine like what Lucas just covered, they really have 10 billions of permutations there. They have so many EVs. So question is, when you have many testing grid, you know, and it since it's like a stream model, you can design the grid the way you want the grid to be looking like, the way you want the permutation to be derived from. Remember, the stream model led the permutation to be unnormalized. Unlike the permutation model, you have to, if it's a 5 variables, every variable have to have a choice there. But the stream model is like consists of multiple buildings. Each building have different number of levels of floors of there. So as a result, you have the flexibility. You can pick up uh, grid 1 and grid 2 and grid 23. You want to test them. So the answer will be, do you select test cases? If you select 5 test cases, are these 5 test cases will be applied to all the grids or separately? I think separately might be better, but in reality, as a vendor of providing such tools, will make it optional perhaps for our customer to decide.
And we have one from Vishal. With QA floaters and QA team members who will do regression testing, does that mean you need more QA engineers? And what's the ideal ratio of QA developers?
Yeah, as QA, I often got these questions. So, guys, the agile development practice encourages QA people, team member to be joining each agile team. Uh, there were organizations that I think still there are organizations even now they would like to make uh, to have all the QA member to be separated to be joining the agile development teams. So 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 when you do that, you cannot change the fact you still need a regression testing. So often the question is, you need a QA floaters joining the agile teams, becoming part of a development team, running their sprint. You still need to do regression testing. Does that mean you need a more QA team members? I think the agile founders of you know uh, the Scrum methodology founders, they introduced this QA floater concept. To me, is to save the resources. In other words, if you have more QA team members, then you assign QA floaters to the development team. If you don't have many, then at least you should have QA floaters. So QA floaters will be joining agile team, agile development teams. They bring the QA quality culture to the development team, so development team can help you to do more testing. In terms of ideal ratio, as I know, it's about 2.5, uh, kind of a meaning one QA person policy serving 2.5 number of developers, programmers.
Great. And we have one time for one more question. This one came through the chat from Andrew. Is the main advantage of the street model is that it can lead to fewer test cases that are not applicable?
That's I think I think indeed true. You know, uh, I think Lucas probably can elaborate these questions. The answers, meaning when you define the applicable as of using the permutation models, it's it's very hard for you to graphically pinpoint to a test cases saying this test case for this combination of variable it's just not applicable because the permutation model itself doesn't have a concept of a predefined test grid. Now with a well-defined stream model test grid, the grid already exists independent of your test cases, meaning you no longer need to think in a complicated way of what variable, what choices are applicable to certain test cases. They are obviously useful, but it takes so much effort to build such rules. While the stream model test grid is so graphical, at any cell, when you want to check on or off, you already know graphically already know what are the related permutations. So as a result, your testers, while they are testing it, they are the best person to find out this variation it's just not applicable. So therefore, it helps you as a company to build a wonderfully beautiful and accurate testing library. I don't know, if Lucas want to add some points there.
I was going to say that we probably create about 25%, roughly 20-25% of temp tasks permuted out that are not applicable. It's just too hard to manage. You
Exactly.
can't. It
Exactly.
would take you 4 days to go through and pick out individually in an Excel sheet the ones that really aren't applicable. I think
Yeah.
this graphical way, you could easily look and say, bam,
Yeah.
that one's not applicable, just exit out immediately. Yeah, I would. Even if it got it down to 5%, that'd be a huge savings of time on everybody. Because now we have to go into our task view and do a search, and then you got to NA them over there. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think Lucas added such a wonderful point there. The reality is, it is hard to quantify your quality standard. Also, yet you are a company like Nvidia, you have to quantify your quality standard.
Right.
Otherwise, you will be creating really, really bad results for your
Right.
customer and for the industry. So that's why a graphical way of testing grid, it will be basically make average people capable of deciding what is really applicable and what is not applicable. Otherwise, you need a almost scientist. You also need a mathematician to to be s- to be statistically correct of deciding what is applicable
Right.
and what is not applicable. You're defining applicable. It's like hundreds miles away. You'll be reaching the actual testing scenarios. So I think that's a wonderful question there. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And looks like we've reached the top of the hour. I'd like to thank our attendees for participating in the Q&A. And on behalf of TechWell, I'd like to thank Dr. Tiran Zhao and Lucas Graff for their time and insights on testing coverage optimization, and our sponsor, Techexcel. And a special thank you goes out to our audience for joining us today. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.